Queen Camilla has stunned the entire UK with a shocking announcement about King Charles's health, and it's left the country speechless. Breaking royal tradition, she spoke out publicly in a moment no one saw coming, sparking panic, confusion, and serious questions about the future of the monarchy. For most of the year, things at Buckingham Palace appeared normal. Royal engagements went on, ceremonies took place, smiles were shared. To the public, it looked like business as usual. If anything seemed different, it was subtle. A few missed appearances by King Charles, a few more by Queen Camilla. Nothing major, nothing alarming. Or so we thought. Behind that polished image of calm, something was clearly shifting. King Charles had quietly stepped back from the spotlight. He wasn't traveling as much. His speeches were shorter. His public presence was fading, but without explanation. At first, the palace gave the usual lines. The king is resting. His Majesty is in good spirits. No real details, just carefully chosen words meant to calm the public and kill the rumors before they spread too far. But the country noticed, and they kept asking, "Where is the king? Why is Camilla suddenly everywhere?" Because while the king was pulling back, Queen Camilla was stepping forward. And not just occasionally. She began handling high-level engagements, standing in for major appearances, and speaking on behalf of the crown. Her presence became consistent, prominent, purposeful. It felt like a quiet transition was happening, but with no one saying it out loud. And then came the announcement. That moment when Camilla broke the silence, broke tradition, and told the world something the palace had spent months avoiding. She spoke about the king's health, directly, publicly, and emotionally. And that changed everything. Suddenly, what once felt like routine royal duties now looked like the early signs of a power shift. The Queen's statement wasn't just informative. It was a signal, a message that something inside Buckingham Palace isn't right, that the monarchy is facing a challenge far greater than anyone imagined. And it's not just about illness, it's about what comes next. Because if the king's health is worse than they've let on, and if Queen Camilla is stepping in this boldly, then the throne itself may be on shaky ground. What seemed like a quiet year for the royal family, it might just have been the calm before a major storm. It all came to light during what was meant to be just another royal engagement. Queen Camilla arrived at the Government House on the Isle of Man in March 2024, polished, composed, and prepared for what looked like a routine visit. The event was meant to highlight her ongoing work around domestic issues, part of her broader mission as Queen to address real-world problems. Nothing about it suggested controversy. Nothing hinted at what was coming. But when she stepped up to speak, the room fell silent, not just because of protocol, but because something about her tone felt different. Then came the moment. In response to a question about King Charles's health, Camilla paused. She looked out across the crowd, and instead of sidestepping the topic, instead of giving the usual royal response, she spoke. "He's doing well," she said, "but it's taking a toll. Managing everything has become difficult for him. That's why I'm here more often. That's why you're seeing less of him." The room froze. It was subtle, simple, but for the royal family, it was seismic. In just a few words, Camilla confirmed what the public had only speculated. The king's condition wasn't just ongoing, it was serious enough to impact his duties, serious enough that Camilla had to step in, and serious enough that she felt the need to tell the world herself. This wasn't an official press release. It wasn't a statement drafted by royal advisors. It was real, personal, raw, and that's what made it powerful. In a monarchy where silence is strategy, Queen Camilla made a decision that broke the mold. She spoke not as a figurehead, but as a wife, a partner, someone who had watched the man she loves struggle behind closed doors, and could no longer pretend everything was fine. The media erupted. Headlines blasted across the UK and beyond. Queen Camilla breaks silence. Health crisis at the palace. Power shifting behind the scenes. And suddenly, what had been whispered in tabloids became the most talked about story in the nation. People weren't just shocked by what she said. They were stunned that she said anything at all. Because in that moment, Queen Camilla did something the monarchy rarely does. She let the world in. And the ripple effect? It's still growing. On the surface, Queen Camilla's words sounded calm, reassuring even. "He's doing well." Just 5 words, enough to settle nerves for a moment. But for many, they raised more questions than answers. Because if everything was fine, why say anything at all? Why break decades of royal tradition just to repeat what the palace had already hinted at in quiet press briefings? The truth is, Camilla's tone said more than her words ever could. She wasn't delivering a prepared statement. She wasn't speaking like a spokesperson. She spoke like someone carrying a heavy emotional burden. And maybe, just maybe, letting it slip. Some believe her comments were meant to ease growing public concern, but others aren't so sure. There's a growing theory among royal watchers that Queen Camilla wasn't just updating the nation, she was bracing them, preparing the public for what might come next, for the possibility that the king's condition is more serious, more unpredictable than anyone has let on. And when you look at her delivery, the hesitation, the softened voice, the unexpected vulnerability, it feels less like a formal announcement and more like a moment of truth that slipped through the cracks. Some royal insiders have even suggested that her words may have come from emotion, not strategy. Because behind all the royal titles and protocols, Camilla is still a wife. She's watching her husband face one of the toughest battles of his life. And she's doing it under constant public scrutiny. That's not something you can easily hide. Not forever. Which brings up an uncomfortable question. Was Camilla speaking to the public, or was she trying to convince herself? It's possible. When people are under pressure, they sometimes speak the words they want to believe. Saying, "He's doing well," might have been a way to stay strong, not just for the country, but for herself. And that's what made the moment so human, so relatable, because for a split second, the Queen wasn't just the Queen. She was a woman dealing with fear, responsibility, and heartbreak, all at once. Of course, the palace has stayed quiet since then. No follow-up statements, no clarifications, but the damage, or the impact, was already done. Camilla's words, whether intentional or not, opened the door. And now, the public is watching closely. What did she really mean? How bad is the king's condition? And most importantly, what happens next? Queen Camilla's announcement didn't just spark concern, it shifted the spotlight. Because while most people were focused on what she said, others started to notice who was saying it, and what that might actually mean. For centuries, the monarchy has operated like a well-oiled machine. Every word, every movement, every statement is rehearsed and approved. Roles are clearly defined. The monarch rules, the consort supports, and the rest of the family falls in line. But right now, that model seems to be bending. Camilla didn't just speak on the king's behalf. She stepped into his place, and she's been doing it more and more. State visits, charity appearances, formal ceremonies. These are no longer rare occasions for her. They've become routine. She's doing the job of a monarch, whether the title says so or not. And that has people asking, is this just temporary support or something more permanent? If the king's health continues to decline and Camilla continues to lead publicly, how long before public perception shifts with it? In the eyes of the people, is she becoming more than a consort? Whether intentional or not, That shift is already happening. Political analysts have noted that Camilla's visibility has increased dramatically over the past 6 months, and with each appearance, each speech, each public role, she's slowly building authority, building presence, building trust. To some, that's reassuring. To others, it's unsettling. Because this wasn't the plan. Camilla was never meant to be the face of the monarchy. Her journey to the throne has been anything but smooth. And for years, her position as queen was seen as symbolic, not political. But that line is now blurring, and the palace knows it. Every time Camilla steps in for the king, it chips away at the traditional power structure. It signals not just support, but substitution. The more she takes on, the more she speaks, leads, and represents, the more the country starts to see her as the one holding things together. So, the real question now is this: is Camilla preparing the country for a new kind of monarchy? One where she quietly leads while the king fades from view? Or is she simply holding the line, temporarily, until the king can return in full force? Right now, no one has the answer. But what's clear is that the balance of power inside Buckingham Palace is shifting, and Queen Camilla is no longer standing behind the throne. She's standing right beside it, and in some ways, above it. After Queen Camilla's unexpected reveal, the reaction was immediate and intense. Across the country, there was a collective pause, a moment of realization, not just that the king was unwell, but that the situation was serious enough to push the queen to speak out. For many, this was the first time they felt the truth wasn't being filtered through tradition or media polish. And the public. They were divided. Some expressed concern, flooding social media with well-wishes, prayers, and messages of support. For them, the Queen's words were a sobering reminder that even the royals are human, vulnerable, fragile. And in a time where political and economic uncertainty already looms large, the idea of a weakened monarch struck a deep emotional chord. But others were more skeptical. Was this an attempt at damage control? Had the palace been hiding the severity of the king's condition? Why was Camilla the one breaking the silence? And what does that say about who's really in charge? As questions swirled, the rest of the royal family began to respond. Carefully, but clearly. Prince William and Princess Catherine released a joint statement just days later. Calm, composed, and diplomatic, it emphasized their father's strength, resilience, and unwavering sense of duty. They also thanked the public for their support, hoping to ease tensions and reassure the nation. Their message was hopeful, but guarded. Meanwhile, Prince Harry, despite the ocean and royal rift between him and the palace, made a rare public statement from the U.S. His tone was emotional, more personal than formal. He spoke not just as a prince, but as a son. No matter the distance, he said, he's still my father. And I admire how he's always put duty before self. It was a rare moment of unity, even if only through words. But perhaps the most heartfelt reaction came from Princess Anne. In a quiet interview following a charity event, she didn't give a press-crafted speech. She didn't dodge questions. She simply said, "He's my brother. I've seen what he's endured, and I know how deeply he still cares about this country." It wasn't political. It wasn't polished. It was real. And that's what the public needed. Authenticity. Something that felt honest in a sea of scripted palace protocol. Of course, the official palace response has remained measured. They've continued to reassure the public without revealing much more. But the emotional undertones of each family member's reaction suggest something deeper is happening behind closed doors. Because this isn't just about a health scare. It's about the royal family preparing for a shift, emotionally, structurally, and symbolically. And if Camilla's announcement cracked the surface, these reactions revealed just how far that crack runs. Just as the public was still processing Queen Camilla's unexpected comments about King Charles, another bombshell dropped, this time about the Queen herself. In November, Queen Camilla suddenly canceled two key royal appearances: the annual Field of Remembrance event at Westminster Abbey and a Buckingham Palace reception for Team Great Britain medalists. At first, the announcements were vague, no cause given, no clear explanation. Then the palace quietly confirmed it. Camilla had been diagnosed with a chest infection. And just like that, the royal household found itself in a far more precarious position. With the king already pulling back from public duties due to ongoing cancer treatment, the absence of the queen raised serious concerns. What happens when both the king and queen are unwell? Who steps in then? More importantly, how bad is it really? The official statement called for a short period of rest and reassured the public that the queen was expected to recover soon. But for many, that wasn't enough. People were already suspicious about how much information the palace was choosing to withhold. And this new health scare only added fuel to the fire. Speculation spread quickly. Was the chest infection more serious than reported? Was it stress-related, brought on by overwork? Could it be something worse? After all, Camilla had been carrying the monarchy alone in many ways. With King Charles out of the public eye, she became the face of the crown, representing the monarchy at major events, maintaining royal visibility, and attempting to reassure the nation during a time of growing uncertainty. It was a heavy burden, and now it seemed even she wasn't immune to the toll it was taking. Still, even while sick, Queen Camilla didn't stay silent. Through a royal spokesperson, she issued an apology to those who were disappointed by her absence and thanked well-wishers for their support. She insisted she was optimistic about her recovery and eager to return to her duties. But the symbolism couldn't be ignored. In a time when the country was already uneasy about the king's health, hearing that the queen herself had fallen ill was unsettling, even frightening. It made the monarchy feel more fragile than ever, and it raised a troubling possibility. What if both the king and queen are sidelined at the same time? Who takes the reins then? And how does the public respond to a royal family that suddenly seems more vulnerable than powerful? One thing was clear: Camilla's illness, though temporary, had shaken the public's confidence even further. It wasn't just about missing events. It was about the growing realization that the people holding the monarchy together might be struggling more than anyone realized. And the future? It's looking more uncertain by the day. If you think the royal family being quiet about health matters is new, think again. History shows us this isn't the first time a monarch's illness has been hidden from the public. In fact, it's tradition. Back in the early 1950s, King George VI, Queen Elizabeth II's father, was battling a serious case of lung cancer. But the public didn't know. The palace kept it tightly under wraps. No leaks, no headlines, just carefully staged appearances to keep up the illusion that everything was fine. Behind closed doors, the king was undergoing surgery, losing weight, and growing weaker by the day. But the country didn't find out the truth until it was too late. When he died in 1952, the shock hit hard, not just because of the loss, but because no one saw it coming. That moment shattered the public's trust, and it sent a clear message: royal silence can sometimes be more damaging than the truth. Fast forward to Princess Margaret, Queen Elizabeth's younger sister. She suffered a long list of health issues, strokes, lung surgery, and complications later in life. But unlike her father, her struggles were made public, and strangely, that transparency earned her respect. People saw her as real, flawed, human. Which brings us back to today. With King Charles's cancer diagnosis and Queen Camilla's chest infection, many fear the palace is slipping back into old habits, keeping too much hidden for too long. The brief public statements, The lack of medical details, the vague reassurances. It all feels familiar, almost scripted. And that's exactly why Queen Camilla's announcement struck such a nerve. It wasn't just what she said, it was that she said anything at all. In a family known for secrecy, her honesty felt rare, risky, revolutionary. But it also raised the stakes, because now the public is watching. They're remembering the past and asking if history is about to repeat itself. They've seen what happens when the monarchy holds back until it's too late. And they're not interested in being left in the dark again. The truth is, the crown has always been polished on the outside, even when it's cracking underneath. The question now is, will the palace break the cycle of silence, or let history repeat itself once more? Queen Camilla's current position at the heart of the monarchy is one of the most unexpected transformations in royal history, because for much of her public life, she was known not as a respected royal, but as a symbol of controversy. For years, she was the quiet shadow behind the noise of scandal. Her name was whispered behind headlines, always attached to one story: the affair with Prince Charles while he was still married to Princess Diana. It was the kind of royal scandal that didn't just cause gossip, it shattered public trust. Diana was beloved. She was the people's princess. Her vulnerability, her charm, and her very public heartbreak made her one of the most adored figures in the world. So when the truth about Charles and Camilla emerged, the public turned on Camilla almost instantly. She became a villain in a love story gone wrong. And after Diana's tragic death in 1997, public anger only deepened. Camilla retreated from the public eye, but her reputation had already been defined, and not kindly. For years, she was viewed as the woman who should never wear the crown. Her relationship with Charles was seen as inappropriate, undeserved, and by many, unforgivable. There were protests, headlines, and endless criticism when the couple eventually married in 2005. But then, something shifted. And it didn't happen with a big announcement or flashy PR campaign. It happened slowly, quietly, through consistent work, quiet dignity, and a refusal to engage in drama. Camilla began to focus on the issues that mattered to her personally: literacy programs, osteoporosis awareness, domestic violence support. She aligned herself with meaningful causes that resonated with everyday people. She wasn't trying to replace Diana. She wasn't trying to be perfect. She was simply showing up over and over again. She let time and action tell her story. And gradually, it worked. Public opinion softened. The press grew quieter. And within palace walls, Camilla became one of the most trusted and steady figures, quietly supporting Prince Charles through decades of royal duty. She didn't try to be the center of attention. She didn't need to. Her value was in her consistency, and it began to show. Still, even after Charles became king, many believed her role would remain symbolic. She would stand beside him, smile at ceremonies, offer quiet support, but never take center stage. But 2024 proved those assumptions wrong. With the king battling cancer and retreating from the public eye, Camilla stepped in. Not as a placeholder, but as a leader. Her presence became prominent, her voice more visible. She was suddenly managing high-profile duties, leading engagements, and representing the crown during a time of real national concern. And then, she broke decades of royal silence by addressing the king's health, publicly, openly, and emotionally. That moment was the final turning point, because it revealed that Camilla wasn't just a figurehead. She was deeply invested. She wasn't protecting an image. She was protecting a husband, a family, and a monarchy under pressure. And the people saw that. Suddenly, Camilla wasn't the villain anymore. She was a devoted wife watching her partner fight cancer. She was a queen juggling public duty and private heartbreak. And most of all, she was a woman doing everything she could to keep the monarchy standing, while the world watched it shake. For many, this humanized her more than anything ever had. The same woman who once symbolized scandal now represented resilience. The queen who once divided a nation was now the one calming it. And whether you support the monarchy or not, you could feel the shift. Camilla's rise hasn't been easy. It hasn't been smooth, and it will never be without criticism. But it's real, because she didn't rise by trying to erase her past. She rose by enduring it, growing from it, and continuing to serve anyway. And in a monarchy that has long depended on public favor, that evolution might just be her greatest legacy. The monarchy has weathered wars, divorces, abdications, and tragedies. But this moment feels different. Queen Camilla's announcement didn't just send ripples through Buckingham Palace, it shook the very foundation of public perception. For the first time in recent history, the people weren't looking at a united royal front. They were seeing something more fragile, more uncertain, and much more human. At the center of it all stands a king battling cancer, a queen fighting her own illness while trying to hold the institution together, and a public that's left wondering who's really leading now. The short answer? Camilla. But the bigger question is, what does that mean for the future of the monarchy? Traditionally, royal roles are clearly defined. The monarch reigns, the consort supports. Everything else falls into line. But over the last several months, those roles have blurred. Camilla hasn't just supported King Charles, she has in many ways replaced him in the public eye. And she didn't demand that position. She earned it by showing up, by speaking out, by navigating royal chaos with a level of calm few expected. Now, her increasing presence raises serious questions about the future of royal leadership. Is this a temporary response to crisis? Or is this the beginning of a permanent shift? One where Queen Camilla becomes the monarchy's primary face of stability. If so, that would be unprecedented. No queen consort in modern royal history has ever commanded this level of public attention, symbolic authority, and operational presence, all while the reigning monarch is still alive. Camilla is no longer just Charles' partner. In many ways, she's becoming the stabilizing figure of the entire institution. And that's where the monarchy finds itself in unfamiliar territory. The idea of Camilla quietly becoming the kingdom's emotional and operational anchor raises complex issues. For one, royal traditionalists may resist it. To them, the Queen's job is ceremonial, not central. Camilla's rise may be viewed as overreach. But to modern Britain, especially a younger, more realistic generation, her presence is refreshing. She's not trying to be perfect. She's trying to be honest, steady, and useful. And in this moment, that may matter more than anything else. Still, the uncertainty looms. If King Charles's condition worsens, or if his recovery keeps him from resuming full duties, there will need to be a clear transition plan. Not just behind closed doors, but in the eyes of the nation. Will Prince William step in sooner than expected? Will Camilla act as a public-facing regent of sorts, a kind of de facto monarch during the king's absence? And what would that mean for the long-term perception of royal power? These aren't easy questions, but they are inevitable. And beyond the royal household, the world is watching. Other monarchies, in Europe, the Middle East, and beyond, are observing how Britain responds. Camilla's decision to speak openly has set a precedent, one that could influence how royal families everywhere handle transparency, leadership, and crisis. Because here's the truth, the old playbook, silence, stoicism, and suppression, isn't working anymore. Camilla's approach is different, more emotional, more vulnerable. more real. And strangely, that may be the very thing keeping the monarchy relevant in a modern world that's skeptical of titles, wealth, and inherited power. So, what does all this mean? It means the future of the monarchy might not rest solely on Charles's shoulders anymore. It might rest with how Camilla continues to lead in this uncertain time. The crown still technically belongs to the king, but right now it's the queen who's carrying the weight. She may not have been born for this role. She may not have been wanted in it. But through sheer endurance, duty, and quiet transformation, she has become essential to it. And for a monarchy that has endured centuries of change, that might be the most significant shift of all. So, what started as a surprising announcement from Queen Camilla has now become a national turning point, one that could reshape the monarchy for years to come. Is this the beginning of a new royal chapter, or the quiet end of an old one? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure. The Queen has spoken, and the world is listening. What do you think this means for the future of the crown? Is Queen Camilla rising to lead, or are we missing something deeper? Let us know in the comments below. And if this story left you stunned, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. The next chapter in royal history is being written, and we'll be right here to cover every moment.